We absolutely cannot achieve what we say our core mission is, academic excellence, without diversity. I was born and raised in South Carolina and grew up there until I went to college, and I went to the University of Virginia, which was approximately 7 hours from home because I wanted to be close to family, but not so close that they could pop in all the time. I was able to major in interdisciplinary studies, which was a special program that allowed me to take courses across the sciences, the arts, humanities, and the social sciences. I discovered a love for social science and decided to continue in graduate school in community psychology, where my focus really was on understanding the experiences of Black youth and their experiences in educational systems and how those experiences shaped their identities for the good and the bad of it. In particular, how educational settings shape students' sense of belonging and also shape who they think they are and who they can be with regard to the things they pursue in their academics and professionally. My experiences as a student before I was a college student led to my interest in DEI work. I think I experienced some of the things that led me to raise questions around issues of equity and inclusion. I noticed that in my own high school, for instance, that certain students got messages, and I would say certain students, it tended to be from my own community, got messages that, that the expectations about where they would go, were not as high as expectations for other students. I noticed that those messages were both direct and indirect. So some of those messages came through where students were placed. They were in lower tracks, they weren't in advanced courses, they weren't mentored or encouraged to pursue those areas. And in other cases, the messages were social, the kinds of expectations or even for me as a high achieving student, expressions of surprise when I would perform well or would do well in my academics. And so I was not a researcher then. But that really led me to a way of thinking about the ways that structures and systems and environments impact students, shape their understandings of who they are, and more importantly, who they can be in ways that also then relate to students' motivation and their persistence. I promptly went off to college to not look at that. I started out in the sciences and engineering. Some of the things that I noticed in K through 12, I also noticed in higher education, some of the things that students from my background received around messages that if you really want to be taken seriously as a scientist, that you can't connect your scientific interest to things that you care about in your community, otherwise you're not a pure scientist. Some of the traditional ways of doing STEM education were things that caused me to have more questions around why students pursued certain pathways and why they didn't. I discovered psychology and social science and ways that I could use technical skills, math and science skills to explore those problems and challenges. And that's what led me to graduate study. I will also say I was an involved student in terms of activism. So in terms of my undergraduate experience, I learned. In my first weeks, I kind of jumped in. Like the first day that I got on campus, there was a march on the president's house, and I'm like, I'm marching. Did I know what I was marching about? No. But because my family had really socialized me to be an informed citizen, that I backtracked a little bit to find out what we were marching about. And that time, it was really the university's investment in South Africa during the apartheid era. And that really pushed me to think about ways that I as a student could be involved in organizations, be involved in my departments, to push for the university to change its investments, to bring more students like me to campus, to even address some of the things that I experienced in my academic spaces that weren't so positive. So I learned very early on that even though institutional leaders made those decisions, that there were really important roles that I as a student, as a part of these organizations and these collective and collaborative activities, could do and say to make a difference and bring those issues to the attention of leadership. So understanding that there was power in the role of a student, but also in collaboratives of students made a difference. And that thinking, shaped the way that I think about my work, the way that I do my work, even as I went on to graduate school to learn more about the skills and the methodologies of research. My orientation towards social change and collaboration towards social change were really shaped by my early experiences as an undergraduate student. Not the weather. In fact, I visited Michigan for the first time in 1997, and it was in January, and it was cold. I expected it to be cold, but it was really cold. And I then visited again in March of the next year, and it was in the 70s. And I was like, this is not so bad at all. And of course, later discovered that that would never happen again. I was fooled into coming here. But I've been here for almost 24 years, and the reason why is because of what is here. And that is, the most intellectually and culturally vibrant experience that I've ever had as a scholar, as a professional, as a teacher. The ways that Michigan was already interdisciplinary in ways that other institutions were not. My interests cross-cut psychology, sociology, and education. And we had programs here that allowed faculty and students to collaborate and work together and teach across those spaces. And to me, that was so exciting. And Michigan's commitment to diversity was a part of that, coupled with the connection of diversity to academic excellence. I think some of the things that I hope are different now in 2022 than when I was an undergraduate student, some decades ago, are the supports for students navigating big, complex college environments. Particularly students who are from first-generation backgrounds and backgrounds where they haven't had experiences in higher education. In my own experience, I tell people that I had a very rich undergraduate experience, but I stumbled upon the mentoring and I was in a special program that allowed me to explore different areas of campus and have particular types of interactions with faculty and mentorship. Those experiences weren't available for all students. I think the things that we're doing now to recognize that we have an obligation to support students if we really are trying to diversify, to support students in navigating really complicated spaces, not assuming that students who haven't had a multi-generational experience in college would understand certain things that many take for granted about how to navigate a college campus, how to connect with faculty, how to find information about co-curricular opportunities, how to use office hours. I mean, things that we really, really take for granted for students who've had more extensive family experience in higher education. So I hope that it becomes the norm for there to be an inclusive approach to student transition where there's built-in supports for students who are first generation, where some of the things that I experienced, being a member of an underrepresented group, questions about my belonging on campus, being one of very few in my academic courses and the like too, that we're making strides in those areas, I know, but we also have important and continued work to do in those areas too. So I feel very proud about the efforts and the investments we've made, but I also know that our community members still report some of those experiences, that we still have work to do in achieving abundant representation of the different groups that make up our country and world on our campus. And my hope is that in 2022 we have tangible indicators that we've made progress and that there's just as much a commitment to continuing to make progress. One of my priority action items is, hopefully won't require me to clone myself, but is to really engage with our community. Even though I've been here a long time as a faculty member and as an administrator, I also know that in this new role that it'll be important for me to hear from voices from our community, from different spaces on campus, from different constituencies, from our students our staff, our faculty, alums, community partners. And so one of my priorities is to use this initial period to create structured and systematic opportunities to talk with student groups, to talk with faculty and staff groups, to create opportunities to connect with some of our community partners, to hear, as we're going into this next phase of our DEI work on our campus, what is their priority, what are the things that they care about, what things are they proud of and that we must continue, and what things are they concerned about that we must do differently or improve upon. So the relationship building is a key priority and objective for me in this first year, for this first year. To create opportunities to share what we have been doing over the past DEI 5-year planning period. We have made tremendous progress in advancing opportunities for participation across different individuals and groups. We've created programs, initiatives that have made a difference in the lives of students, of our faculty, our staff. I want to create more opportunities to share that with our community, not to show off, but to hopefully recognize the people on the ground who have been doing this work, and hopefully to inspire people to continue to persist and to continue to be motivated to move forward when we still have a lot to do. So my goals really are related to building the relationships and supporting the development of the trust that I think is necessary to do this work together, as well as helping people understand where we've come and using their informed perspectives to help us define where we can go and where we should go. We have to continue to the work that many people are doing now on the ground across our campus units to achieve abundant representation of different groups on our campus, particularly those that have been historically underrepresented and underserved. So that means redoubling and intensifying our efforts to engage in community outreach, to support pipeline and pathway programs to higher education, for instance, such as the work of Wolverine Pathways and the work of our Center for Educational Outreach, to provide options and opportunities and access to be at the University of Michigan, and to connect specifically with communities that have not historically been served well. Partnering with our Office of Enrollment, with our President's Office, with our schools and colleges and their outreach, engagement, and admissions teams as well. So creating abundant representation at the level of our students, and also thinking about some of those same processes as it relates to the representation of our faculty and staff. We cannot be an excellent environment, and we cannot do diversity in terms of inclusion and equity if we don't start by making sure that we actually have representation of the groups and their perspectives and their lenses and their life experiences on our campus. That's a priority. That's something that I've heard through my community engagement with our campus stakeholders, and that's something that is, first and foremost critical to our advancement and to us really living up to the credence of being the leaders and best. As someone who has been at Michigan for a long time, and I've been a long time fan and someone who has held Michigan's work with a great deal of pride. That said, I can say that within the last 5 to 6 years of our DEI planning period, that there's a difference. That in one area is just in the way that DEI has become a part of the lexicon, the language, the fabric of who we are and how people describe the work that they do. 5 or 6 years ago, say preceding this the DEI 1.0 plan, as we call it, that it wasn't unusual for certain units to say, we don't even understand what this DEI thing is. It's something that's separate from our academic mission or our core mission, or more benignly, DEI is important, but in our unit, it really doesn't apply to us because we do technical things in our unit, or we do X types of things in our units. We don't work on DEI topics, therefore DEI is not relevant to us. Fast forward the work of this plan, that it's become a part of the fabric, that every single unit in space, they may have different views of what diversity, equity, and inclusion mean and what it should mean and how do we achieve it. But there's not a unit space that can say, and not be called on if they would try to say, that DEI doesn't apply to us, that there's nothing about our policies, practices, procedures, communities, and the work that we do that excludes DEI. Now, that doesn't mean we're at utopia. We haven't, perfected how to actually effectively integrate DEI into our standard practices and operations so that it is secondhand, so that it's infused with the cultural fabric. That's where we're trying to go. But I've seen a difference in terms of people's awareness, understanding. They're including it in how they talk about their units and their missions in different ways too. And there's more accountability around DEI too. I think we've created a standard where when we bring new leaders into our environment, we are expecting that they have had some experience and demonstrated experience in engaging DEI, that they have an awareness and that they have demonstrated that these are part of their values and their efforts in their prior roles. I also think that we've done incredible things related to creating opportunities and pathways for students. Again, I mentioned Wolverine Pathways, which creates opportunities for communities that have been underserved to create opportunities and pathways for students in ways that respect those students and respect their families and communities. The Go Blue Guarantee also has been a tremendous effort to support socioeconomic access to Michigan, particularly for our students in state, that we have a public mission and obligation to support and serve, and to ensure that students from socioeconomically diverse backgrounds have access to Michigan. Those are a few areas. Some of our units have made incredible strides around faculty diversity. 5 years is a short period, so we can't say that we've totally transformed our environment, but some of our units have developed very innovative strategies for creating diverse applicant pools and for recruitment strategies that signal that we are trying to hire scholars of the highest quality who also have demonstrated commitments to diversity. And we have found that that strategy attracts scholars and faculty from underrepresented backgrounds who often are at the lead of doing the work of DEI as it relates to teaching and scholarship and mentoring and supporting our students. So a lot has happened, coupled with what we've learned about the things that we still need to do. We absolutely cannot achieve what we say our core mission is, academic excellence, without diversity. And I say that because the argument is often the moral or socially just one. Addressing diversity and including diversity is the right thing to do. It's right to include people from different backgrounds because it's the morally good thing to do. It's the just thing to do. And those things are true, but when you only put that in the moral or the ideological kind of space, then it becomes optional. That it would be great to do that because it's the right thing to do, but not because it's actually essential for us to be excellent, for us to reach our core mission. And that is why it's so important. Michigan, we use the term leaders and best. To be the leaders and best in terms of innovative educational approaches, in terms of innovative scholarship of all topics, not just topics that focus on DEI, but including topics that focus on DEI that help us address the most pressing and wicked social challenges that we have, as well as the opportunity and the obligation of a public institution to positively impact society at the local, national, and international level without having community members here at the student, faculty, and staff levels that bring different perspectives, that bring different lenses, that bring different ways of understanding a problem and developing a solution. then we're going to be left behind. We're not going to be the most innovative. We're not going to be the most excellent. We're not going to be the most advanced. So regardless of how individuals might feel ideologically about the idea of diversity, that it gives us an advantage in excellence that, and without it, we will be intellectually bankrupt, not only culturally bankrupt, and we will not be able to be, to uphold the standards of academic excellence that we say defines Michigan. I am dipping and tiptoeing into increasing my literacy in our social media space. I don't know if you need to say that on the camera. I have a great respect for it, but I recognize it as a set of skills and proficiencies that I have a lot to learn about, and that our students, many of them, are experts and really facile at using these tools for communication, sharing, connection. I know that our team has proficiencies in these areas, and this is an area that I'm eager to learn more about and to use to connect with students. Also creating more opportunities for the personal touch, in person too, as we're coming back together, after a period of mostly remote, due to the pandemic. Looking forward to creating opportunities to connect with existing student organizations, with student government and other types of structure groups, but also creating opportunities more informally for students who are not necessarily involved with the formal organization, but want to provide input or connect to the work of DEI and the DEI community, creating opportunities for formal and informal engagements with students. I would start with my parents, who more so modeled it than explicit discussion and socialization. So my parents were very busy. My father was both a farmer and a school social worker. Yeah, jobs that don't seem to connect, but and my mother was a school teacher and a volleyball and basketball coach, very busy, worked long hours, engaged, but they were engaged community members, so it was normal for me to think that I should be an active participant in my community around community improvement, around decisions that are made, around even activism to support, community improvement. So I think the way of thinking about being an active citizen and that being a part of my obligation as a citizen and someone who should be a part of positive change and not just complain about what's wrong is a part of that socialization that began with my family. Again, more my parents as models of that. I had the pleasure and the privilege of also having some terrific mentors as an undergraduate student. It took me several years traversing my undergraduate experience to actually meet a Black faculty member. And again, not that all faculty should not have positive connections and be able to support and mentor students, but to me, it made a critical difference to also see someone from my community represented in the faculty role and to be able to talk to those faculty about, how they were navigating the space as one of few, and to have support and affirmation around the fact that I had good ideas to share. Someone who says that out loud to you, you have something to contribute and something to give in a space where you might be feeling doubt. Those mentors that I happened to stumble upon, out of the luck of the draw, were so critical to me, and that's part of the work that I do here in my efforts to diversify the faculty and to diversify our staff, is to provide more opportunities for students to see themselves, to engage with all of our faculty and staff, but to also see examples of people from their own communities in these roles, which make a unique impact and difference. Not working? What is that? No, just kidding. I think that people should, can work hard, and the object of the game is to work hard in ways that have meaning, purpose, and make positive impact, but also be a whole person, a whole family member, a whole individual. So I achieve that most of the time. Some of the things that I like to do, some of my favorite places, I'm a big football fan, so Michigan Stadium with the big house is one, that's one of my favorite places, to hang out in during the fall. I also, some of my favorite restaurants, both around the area, include, I love Pacific Rim, best tuna, as well as Acadian Cajun food. So there's a cool place in Saline called Max. I don't know if I'm supposed to be endorsing like businesses, so I fancy myself a novice cyclist. So I claim no skill, just enjoyment. And so our metro parks and just green spaces around Ann Arbor and both close to campus, mostly not close to campus, are a really fun space for me. So this area has terrific metro parks, and I encourage people to take advantage of them if they haven't. I also like discovering new coffee shops, and that is really a great hobby to have in Ann Arbor, where there are like literally lists of like top 10 coffee shops and lists that don't have the same top 10 coffee shops on them. So those are just a few things that I enjoy around the area. One thing that I would like the community to know about me is that I'm a lifelong learner, that although I've been here for quite a while, I'm going into my 24th year, which is hard to believe, that every year I continue to learn something new about our university, about the people, about the work. That openness, along with the experiences that I've had in different roles in my department, at the college, and central administration, I hope will allow me to really engage and learn from our community in ways that help me be effective in my work and roles. I really am excited to connect with our community and learn from our community in new ways. Just feel proud and honored to be representing and helping to lead and collaborate with our campus community at this really critical time in our society.